I already know it because I have already been there twice. It belongs to a rabbi named Jechieli, who enjoys the open countryside now and then. Edward says, where are we then actually? Asket says, do you mean the time and the place? Edward says, yes. Asket says, we are here in the 13th century in France. It is presently the time of the reign of Saint Ludwig. Edward says, that is all Greek to me, because I am still as bad as possible with the history of this time. Asket says, that is indeed also not of great significance. Come. We are going now. We went over to the forest where Jitschi then got to his feet and joined us. Jitschi says, I am no longer astonished about anything, and I am also free of fear now. I was actually quite stupid. Where are we now? Jitschi had quite obviously gotten a grip on himself again, and his face had returned to its normal color again too. Asket briefly explained the circumstances to him, and, admirably, he now suddenly came to terms with that. It is simply fantastic. I have still not yet seen 50 springs, and suddenly I am 600 years younger. Asket says, your calculation is not exactly correct, but you could also say it like that. Then we walked wordlessly through the forest on a path made by game, which, already after less than 15 minutes, led to a log hut on the other side of the forest. Asket says, that is Rabbi Jechieli's little recreation house. Generally, he is called a scientist, wizard and magician, the latter certainly being incorrect. There was an enclosure behind the house and there was a horse in it. It was apparently the means of transportation for the rabbi who, according to that, must have, therefore, been there. And he actually was there. Somewhere in the house a dog was whipped up, and then a bearded man stepped into the doorway and looked out. In a few moments he discovered us, held his hand above his eyes, and then stepped quickly towards us. Jechieli says, so there you are again. It has been years since the last time you were here. But who are these two men? Asket says, friends of mine. They are from a distant land which you do not know. Jechieli says, do they come from the stars as to you? Asket says, no, they are from this world, from yours, but from very far in the future. Jechieli says, you told me about that once. But what does the man have here on his belt? Jechieli pointed to my appended torch. Edward says, that is an electric pocket lamp with batteries. Jechieli says, that is unknown to me. What is its purpose? Unfortunately, I cannot acquaint myself with things like that because your friend does not want to take me with her. Edward says, but you certainly do know what a lamp is. Indeed, in your time you also have things like this in order to make light. But to my knowledge you used tallow, candles or oil, and so forth, for that. Jechieli says, so that is therefore a lamp. But where does one light it? Edward says, here, see. You do not have to ignite this torch with fire, rather only with this small switch here. It has neither tallow nor oil, nor a candle. It burns with electrical energy, which I, however, cannot more closely explain to you, because I do not know very much about these things. Jechieli says, that is incomprehensible to me. Jitschi says, just leave that, Edward. I understand quite a lot about electricity and will explain everything to him later. Edward says, thank you, that takes a problem away from me. See here, Jechieli, you can keep this torch. Here you also still have 4 replacement batteries for it. Let Jitschi explain the entire secret to you. Jechieli says, but I cannot accept that. Indeed, that is certainly very, very valuable. Jitschi says, laughing, stop it. Just take the lamp, because, for us, These things are quite cheap and can be had in great quantities. Jechieli gratefully accepted the lamp and marveled at it at length. Then, in discussion, he went into the house with Jitschi, while Asket and I roamed through the meadows chatting and enjoying the glorious nature. More than 5 hours passed before we returned again and discovered Jechieli in Jitschi talking shop. Jitschi says, Jechieli is very clever. I have given him my electric fence energizer and have also drawn up plans for him to set up a dynamo which he can drive with a windmill or a water wheel. Now he wants to set up an electric security device for the door of his house with it, because people constantly bother him. Asket says, with ringing laughter, that could indeed become quite mirthful. If he really does that, then he will go down in history as a mysterious magician. Indeed, he is already called that now. Jitschi says, I will study the old books of French history. Perhaps I will actually find my electric fence energizer in them as a door guard, and the simple torch is some sort of dim magic lamp. Rabbi Jechieli's work of the devil. I am excited. But now I still want to put a question to you. Asket. Jechieli has given me some things which I would like to take back into our time, because they would, with certainty, have a very high antique value there. Can I take the things back with me? Asket says, if you want to, naturally. But the value of the things would not be great for your time, and indeed, because the gifts from Jechieli are clearly from his epoch, from the 13th century, yet, in your time, will not be older. We require only a tiny split second to go from this epoch back to your time, during which everything in my ship and these things will also only age by just this time. If Jechieli's gifts are to become antiques, then you must bury them somewhere or deposit them in some other way, and arrange for them to endure in the normal time span of centuries so they then really age. With our ship, if I may so speak, we bridge space and time by way of a transmission through parabolic space, whereby space and time become finite and shrink to a denominator of a split second. That means that we can, in this way, bridge time spans of billions of years in a tiny split second without becoming older than that specific split second. Jitschi says, the mathematics are too high for me. Asket says, it is an equation. Jitschi says, I understand that even less, but it really does not matter. It is really a shame about the beautiful gifts. Edward says, your materialism again, my son, eh? Asket's laugh rings out. Obviously she finds my speech funny. Asket says, you reveal a healthy humor. But let us go now, because we still want to change to another time today. We did as she ordered. Some half-hour later the ship again sped with us into the sky. Then, for a short split second, I again felt that I simply no longer was. The end of contact. Excerpt from the book, Fantastic Past, pages 97-98. Author, Robert Cheru, NSB provided by Mistress B. Sauer on September 18, 1975.